Hey guys, my name is the Alpha, and today I want to talk about Battlefront II and its reinforcement system. Primarily, I want to speak about the DLC reinforcements that we're hoping that we're going to get to see, because currently we only have 2 reinforcements, and we'd like to see more than just 2. One thing I noticed about everyone who does these reinforcement videos for DLC, they don't understand, or they don't specify the idea of what the reinforcements are and how they're just special classes, not specific characters. So everyone wants the Praetorian Guards or the Rebel Commandos or the ARC Troopers, but they have to come up with a counter. To add a character to that system, you need to add a new class. So if you add the Republic Commandos, the droids are going to need a counter to that, and it needs to be an immediate counter. Another thing that people keep missing on is that these reinforcements don't need to be in every era. In the Resistance versus First Order era, there's no bomber class because there was no bomber class. We just got a bomber class in canon from the new movie, but there's no bomber class for the First Order, so there's no bomber class for the new era content. That said, we would only need, if we added Republic Commandos, to only get a droid counter, but then we'd have that whole new class to play around with, and then the next DLC, say it's Original Trilogy DLC, then we can add more troops to that class for just the Original Trilogy. That way we don't have clones running around on Jakku, or we don't have the same thing we have with the Wookiee Warrior, how the Wookiee Warrior is across all eras. So to begin the list, I've created 2 classes that I feel would work perfectly in the game, and it's a Commando class and a Guardian class. The Guardian class is a specific melee-based class. All of them are melee-based characters. The Commando class is all shooting characters. They all have guns and everything. The first reinforcement I want to talk about is from the Guardian class, and that is the Jedi Temple Guard for the Clone Army. Jedi Temple Guards were Jedis that were handpicked from the Jedi Order and became faceless, nameless guardians of the Jedi Temple. They carried yellow light pikes or even a yellow double-bladed collapsible lightsaber as seen in Star Wars Rebels. The reason I think the Jedi Temple Guards will work perfectly is because they are melee-based characters. They are guards like most of the other characters you'll see on my list. Their force abilities don't have to be that important, but you could make it have that they have a force jump or something, or some of their abilities, instead of being a basic ability, would be a force ability, but it would still have the same outcome or a similar outcome. I wouldn't make it something so ridiculous where you have like a mini Luke Skywalker, like a little weaker, well, Luke's already weak, but like a weaker version of Luke Skywalker running around that you can get for 3,000, 4,000 battle points instead of 6,000 or 8,000. The next reinforcement I want to talk about is the IG-100 Magna Guard for the Separatist Army, or the Magna Guard for short. The Magna Guards were personal bodyguards for General Grievous, but they were also used for other Separatist leaders. They were just General Grievous's favorite type of droid. The Magna Guards were equipped with a electrostaff that was able to deflect lightsaber hits, and the Magna Guards were even able to be de-limbed to the point where they could still fight. As we see in Revenge of the Sith, they were decapitated and lost limbs and were still able to fight on. I feel they would work because they would be a pretty similar counter to the Jedi Temple Guards, as you could give them an advanced jump like the Jedi Temple Guards would have a force jump. They could have a higher jump since they're droids. You can make it work. And they would be as fast as a Temple Guard because they're droids. You could make it work. They would have blasters if needed for their ability for long distances, but I'll get more into that for abilities. But you can make it work, and it would be very similar to balance it for a Temple Guard and a Magna Guard. And that's why I feel like those two would work perfectly as grouped reinforcements for the Clone Wars era. Now we're going to move on to the Galactic Civil War. In the Galactic Civil War era, I'm going to talk about the Rebellion Honor Guards. The Rebellion Honor Guards were security for high-ranking rebellion leaders that carried an electropole and a DH-17 blaster pistol. Again, this would work perfectly fine for the Guardian class that I created. The Galactic Civil War era is the Imperial Royal Guards. The Imperial Royal Guards were an all-red, cloaked bodyguard of Emperor Palpatine, but were also used to protect Darth Vader in his vulnerable states like we saw in Rogue One. The Imperial Royal Guards would carry force pikes and a hidden heavy blaster pistol. And again, that is a perfect and exact counter to the Rebel Honor Guards. It doesn't need to be exactly like all the other ones from the other eras if it's not going to interact with them. So the fact that both of them are going to be basic humans, they don't need a force jump or an enhanced jump, so that won't be part of it, but it still balances for this era, and that's all you need to do when you're creating these reinforcements for these classes. Lastly, for the new era, for the First Order, I would pick Snoke's Elite Praetorian Guards. The Elite Praetorian Guards were first seen in Star Wars Episode 8 The Last Jedi. They were used to protect Supreme Leader Snoke from any immediate dangers. They held a plethora of melee-based weapons, including a pike, a double-bladed knife that could become detachable into 2 different knives, a whip, and a heavy blade. All of the weapons they carried were lightsaber resistant as well as certain parts of their armor. Next, we're going to move on to the one that I had trouble figuring out what to pick, but I'm sure DICE and EA would have an easier chance of picking it, and that is a resistance type of honor guard. Now, it could be a different species honor guard or something like that. It would be something like a Zabrak guard or something like that. Or they could just take the Rebellion honor guard and make a resistance kind of outfit for them and just call it a resistance honor guard. I couldn't find a resistance honor guard in canon so far, but I'm sure that that's something very minor that Disney would let them play around with the canon, just to make a character so we don't have a Praetorian Guard and nothing for the resistance. But either way, the Praetorian Guards are still going to be way cooler than whatever they make. So next, we're going to move on to the Commando class reinforcements that I created. So for the Republic Army, for the Commando class, I decided to use Clone Commandos. I was stuck between Clone Commandos and ARC Troopers, and I felt that ARC Troopers would be a better skin if they ever added skins to the game for the clones, but the Clone Commando would be a better reinforcement. Clone Commandos were elite troopers that performed special op missions and were the absolute best soldiers of the Grand Army of the Republic could offer. They carried different types of weaponry depending on their squad, but you usually see them holding blaster rifles. This next one is going to be very difficult to balance, but is one that I put in here because everyone's wanted so badly, and it is the Droidekas, or the Destroyer Droids. Now, if they have trouble putting these in, they could always replace it with the B3 Super Battle Droids that were seen in Star Wars The Clone Wars animated series, but I think everyone would rather Droidekas. Droidekas were extremely dangerous and capable of crowd control. They would roll into battle and quickly move into their offensive mode, which would activate a shield. The shield had a functionality for the droid to shoot through it and not receive any outside damage. Next, we're going to move on to the Galactic Civil War era, and with that, the Rebellion Commandos was the only thing I could come up with, but there was no Rebellion Commando that I know of, so I would just recommend that they put in a special type of species, like a very buff species. Like, we'll put in, for example, a Celestian Commando would be perfect. I mean, Celestians aren't known for their tankiness, but that's just a recommendation. Like a certain type of alien that would be cool to see, that would work, and just make it a commando, give it a heavy blaster or something, or give it a blaster rifle, and make it work. It wouldn't be that hard, just have to pick the right species and give it the right weaponry. Last reinforcement, since I decided to omit the new era content, including the First Order and the Resistance, since I feel they don't have commando troopers that would be good enough for this, I'm doing for the Galactic Civil War a Shock Trooper or a Shadow Trooper. The Shock Trooper and the Shadow Trooper could be skins for Stormtroopers, or they could be reinforcements. So what I would pick would be either make one a reinforcement and one a unlock for the Empire for their cosmetics. So just to talk about both of them, the Shock Trooper had white armor with red accents and carried a DTL-19 heavy blaster rifle, and they were seen as the original guards for Emperor Palpatine in the last Battlefront game. So again, it's not that hard, they have the assets. And the Shadow Troopers were stealth troopers that wore all black armor and had the ability to become invisible for a period of time. Now, I think that the Shock Trooper would probably work better balancing wise and ability wise with everything, but I know the Shadow Trooper would be pretty cool. I just think that they might get lost in the mix with the Death Troopers. I think that they would be a better cosmetic skin for the Stormtroopers instead of being its own reinforcement. Now that I've given you guys all the reinforcements that I'd want to see and which ones that they should put in that would work perfectly fine, I'm going to talk about how they would be balanced more with their abilities. As we all know, the reinforcement class all have the same ability. It doesn't matter which era you're playing in. The Wookiee Warrior would have the same ability set up as a First Order Flame Trooper. Just they will change out their grenade and the fact that their overload ability is for a flamethrower instead of a Wookiee bowcaster. So with that in mind, a lot of the abilities I picked here are very similar or would have slight modifications but work in the same way. So for the Guardian class, the abilities would consist of a speed boost, a damage buff, and a specialty move. This is basically what the name implies. It's a boost that gives the user a greater speed improvement, and this could have star cards that would equal you moving faster when you use it, or that you take less damage while using your speed boost. Either or would it help the class better. I don't think it would be too game breaking if it was balanced for the right amount of damage resistant or time the speed goes or how fast you're going and such. So the next ability is the damage buff, and now the damage buff I will say could be stacked on top of a speed boost. You could have a speed boost and the damage buff activated. It wouldn't cancel each other out. But the damage buff, I would say it'd either be that the melee user either gets 1 or 2 melee strikes that are heavy hits and then it ends, or that all their melee strikes do more damage for, I'd say at most 5 seconds, because any more would be pushing it for a base ability. So last ability is a specialty ability I named, but I'm leaning more towards a quick, weakening, long-range weapon ability, if that makes any sense. Let me get into it and you might understand it more. So for something like the Royal Guards would pull out their DH-17 and shoot like maybe 2 shots real quick, and it would stun a fleeing target for half a second to a second. That way they don't have to waste their speed boost to run up and hit these targets. I don't think it should do a lot of damage at all. I think it should be a very minimal amount of damage, or even if that, it should do no damage. I think no damage might not be that well. I think a very tiny amount of damage would be perfect. It also work for, say, the Praetorian Guards. You give them a throwing knife, they throw a knife, and it will do the same thing. A half a second to a second stun to let them run in or hit a fleeing target for a very weakened amount of damage, but still damaging them and giving them the time to run in. So that's about it for the Guardian class and all their abilities. Now we're going to move on to the Commando class. This one is going to be a lot more difficult, definitely. So I had a lot of trouble with this Commando class, and the 3 that I decided to give it was a personal shield, a grenade launcher, and a squad heal. Now I know what you guys are going to say, but Alpha, that's practically just a basics trooper class. You could have gotten all of those in the original Battlefront on a character. Yeah, but these are going to have a little bit of twist to them. So for the personal shield, I would make it a more powerful version of the squad shield we already have in the game. It would take more hits than the one we have in the game already, and it would have an effect on it. It could either be an electric kind of effect or a Dioxis effect, some sort of effect where the target gets too close to the shield where they would actually be in it, that they would be getting damaged. That way it would stop people from running up to you and meleeing you and when you're activating your shield, which is a problem we have for the normal troopers when they activate the shield. Also with that, I would either say do this and the effect, or just do this, where you can't receive damage while the shield's activated, but you can shoot out of it. So the next ability I want to talk about is the grenade launcher ability, and with this ability, I would not make it stack with the personal shield. You can't use the grenade launcher while using the personal shield. I feel like that would be overkill. So this grenade launcher ability, I would say, would be impact grenades instead of how Bosk has his grenades where they hit the ground and it waits a few seconds. The second it makes impact, it blows up. And I would make it that it shoots 3 to 5 of those rapidly. It would be interesting to see how that works. I feel it would be like a very weakened and quicker version of Boba Fett's rockets, but not nearly doing as much damage. It's the squad heal, and the thing with the squad heal is I had trouble finding an ability that would be the third good ability that would work for all these classes, and I felt that a heal would work better, but a personal heal is kind of like the Wookiee Warrior or the Enforcer's Fortify ability, which is then why not use an enforcer instead? So I decided to make this a squad heal, and instead of doing bonus health, it just heals you guys instantly. So if anyone in the circle would get healed instantly, not just the character, but they don't get a bonus health like a Yoda's Presence or a Fortify or the officer's orders do. I think that's going to wrap up the video. I talked about the 2 new DLC classes that I would add, and I gave you all of the reinforcements that I would add, and I think that would balance perfectly with these abilities. If there's any abilities you would add or anything you would change in this, please leave a comment, because I just wanted to do this because I saw a lot of people doing these reinforcement videos for DLC speculation and not really grasping the concept of how these reinforcements are classes and not just specific characters. And if you guys are interested in this, I might do it for another video for hero DLC characters and see how they could work and which ones to pick and not to pick and how I would decide for it. But alright guys, I'm going to end this video right here, and thanks for watching and have a great day.